Hello and welcome to Forever Red Devils. This is your latest Manchester United news on a Thursday morning. Europa League back this evening. An opportunity for Manchester United to get their first victory of the season, which is a little bit childish, really, when you think about the fact that we are so far deep into the competition, 3 matches, and yet to get a result. So not ideal at all, but hopefully, we can try to continue on a bit of a new manager bounce type of situation and get to a situation where we can, hand over the team to Ruben Amorim in next week with, hopefully a win, a draw in the Premier League, a win in the Europa League, and going into the last 8 of the League Cup. That is the kind of ideal situation, and I don't see why it's not attainable. To be perfectly honest, all these games the last few weeks have been very winnable, and I thought Chelsea could have won that game. Very frustrated that we didn't win the game. To go 1-0 up and then concede in that manner, it was very characteristic of Manchester United at the moment, but very frustrating. So, coming up in the show today, we're going to be talking about a potential return for Paul Pogba. We're going to be talking about a striker deal for next year. We're talking a little bit about why Ruben Amorim has potentially been set up to fail, as well as a preview tonight's game against PAOK, who, Ruud van Nistelrooy has spoken about as being one of the top teams, in the Europa in terms of, they're the current Greek champions, and they're currently second in the league, etc., etc. But I mean, please tell me whenever we, as Manchester United, will look at a game against Park and not go, yep, that's a game we should be winning 10 times out of 10. It has to be a game you're going to win. So, let's get into it, shall we? And we're going to start with a bit of a weird story. And that is that Louis Saha, a former Manchester United player, has decided that he would love to see Paul Pogba back at Manchester United, saying that the reason he didn't succeed was because of the environment within the club. If you look at the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, he also struggled to fit in. And basically, he said as follows. He said, Paul Pogba can go wherever he wants. If he's given the platform to show his talent again, people will be reminded of how special he is. He can play in the Champions League. He can play for France, and I'm a big fan of his. He said, speaking about United, he said, I would love to see him at Manchester United because when you look at their midfield, they have lost Scott McTominay, which is a loss because he contributed to the team as well. He said, when you look at things with previous managers, and try to understand what happened, you see where there were big mistakes that have been made, and letting Pogba go was a sign that things were difficult to manage at Manchester United. Absolute nonsense. Paul Pogba was a great player, was a massive issue in the change room, and going and signing Paul Pogba would going back to everything that's been done wrong in the last few years. And I think I don't think that's up for debate. I mean, I don't think any Manchester United fan would really want to take Pogba back. Not from a player point of view, 100%. A player like him with creativity, with athleticism, could change Manchester United. But you've got to get that squad under wraps. You've got to get that squad back down to earth and functioning. And unfortunately, he's too big of a personality and too bad of a personality in the wrong kind of environment to ever be successful, I think, once again at Manchester United. I think he's a player when he's on board. And we've seen the videos of France, for example. He is a leadership type character. He is a big character. And I think he's a player. If he's on board with the project, I think he can add a tremendous amount of value to it. But not in the current situation. If this was a settled squad with lots of big personalities, big leaders, and he can kind of fit along that. But I just think at the moment we're far too unsettled. Players don't know their position. Players are already under a lot of pressure. Players are already under a lot of scrutiny with regards to their mentality and the likes. And I think that, he's just so wrong for Manchester United right now. So, yeah, look, I mean, Luis Zaha reckons he could work, but no. No, 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 no. I mean, he continued to talk about the fact that he said he wasn't as an Eric Ten Hag problem as several talented players struggled with the club's transition. He said there were problems with Cristiano Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho, even Marcus Rashford in some way. So he says that all those things need to stop, and hopefully their sides can perform their way they should be performing. And yeah, there's a certain amount of that is true. But I think also that's kind of been the problem with Manchester United is that it's a bit of a dysfunctional team, and you've got these big personalities that come in, and they're not happy with how things are going, and I think a lot of egos and pride sort of has been put on the line when nobody's really been able to shelve those egos and been able to sort of put the team first type of thing. And that's why we kind of sit in the situation. And that I think is one of the biggest things that Ruben Amorim needs to change when he comes in. He's got to get the squad aligned. He's got to get the ego, any sort of egos that there are, in shape. But he needs to get the personalities out as well. We've got to start developing players and personalities who will step up when the going gets tough and are going to take charge and say when things are going badly, no, I'm going to affect the game. I'm going to lift my players by stepping up a level. And I'm talking about Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, Casemiro, in the defense, De Ligt and Martinez, for example, something like Diego Dalot. These are your senior players who've got to step up. And De Ligt's only been here for a few months, but he's, captained his national side. He's captained Ajax to I think, semi-finals and Champions League. So, these are the players that really have to step up and start showing why there are players of this kind of level. Because they are top world-class players on their day. And the problem is that it's too rare that we see that kind of that day. So that's I think that's a major thing he needs to try and work on. He needs to try and get that sorted quite quickly. But I do think it's something that he can get under wraps. But he's going to have a difficult time, a very, very difficult time. And that is because of the following. So the League Cup quarterfinals have been confirmed, and as a result, Ruben Amorim is going to be facing an absolute baptism of fire when he begins with a mental schedule in December. Now, this could be a good thing or a bad thing. Now, a lot of people saying, set up to fail, and I think, from a squad point of view with lots of injuries, yes, this is not an ideal schedule at all. We've even got games, for example, where there's just a one-day turnaround. However, in terms of trying to get a system in place and trying to get players used to playing in a system, this can be quite useful. So this is the current situation. We will be playing on in December the following. December the 1st, 4th, 7th, 12th, 15th, 19th, 21st, 26th, and 30th. That is 9 games, in December. And basically a game every 2 to 3 days. We've got, most of those Premier League, we've only got one Europa League game. In December, we then got a Carabao Cup quarterfinal. That's on the 19th against Spurs. 2 days later, we play against Bournemouth at home. So it is a bit of a baptism of fire for Ruben Amorim, but I think at the same time, it's a massive opportunity for him to get the system going and to really get everybody aligned and playing, as one. So it's not ideal at all, and there's some big games in there. There's City away in the Premier League before we then before we then go away to Spurs. We've got Arsenal away as well, Newcastle home, Wolves away. So it's not an easy period at all. But at the same time, you've got to look at this as an opportunity. You've got to look at this as a chance to get the season back on track. Because if you have a good period during this sort of 9-game stretch, you can find yourself coming up that Premier League table quite quickly. Especially if you can beat teams like an Arsenal, like a City, teams who are going to be competing right at the top, and you can start sort of taking taking points of teams who are higher than you, and start gaining ground on them. So it's a ridiculous way to start your tenure, but in many ways it might be good, because it does allow for us to play several games in the new system. It does allow Ruben Amorim to really get a hold of his players. He will have to rotate. So the results might not be phenomenal given how difficult this period is going to be, but by the time you get to January at the start of the transfer window, you will have a very, very good idea of his squad and the players, for example, that he can trust, that he can't trust, players that he needs to replace, for example, players that maybe that need more opportunities. But also, there's bad news of the transfer market. So stories breaking today that apparently Ruben Amorim will not have an opportunity to really sign anybody in January due to the very large financial spend that we've had under Erik ten Hag. So this is coming from the Football Insider, where basically saying that they will struggle to sign new players because of the financial ramifications of both the obviously the transfer window in the summer, but also more importantly for the managerial financials. So we've obviously had to pay Ten Hag out of his contract and sort of the severance clause or whatever. So we've had to pay him a really big fee in sacking him, and we've also had to pay to get Ruben Amorim out of Sporting. So we just spent a lot of money on both sacking as well as hiring a manager, as well as paid a lot of money in the summer. So the reality is, come January, it doesn't sound like there's going to be a lot of funds available for Ineos to sort of spend. We're going to probably have to wait until the summer. So basically what we've got is what Ruben Amorim is going to have to try and use. The question is there enough? And I think there is to a certain degree, but I think it's about getting players up to their potential. We talk about lack of goals. Rasmus Højlund needs to start becoming a 20-goal striker. Now, unfortunately for him, he's signed for a team where there just isn't that quality at the moment. So he's having to fill in the role, and this is why the next story we'll talk about is very interesting in terms of potentially signing a striker. Because I think the problem is we went to sign Joshua Zirkzee, who's not a goal scorer. He brings people in. He's admitted that he's not a goal scorer. That he is, somebody who likes to bring other players into the game. For example, he can drop a bit deeper and help out there. But he scored I think one Premier League goal. I think he's scored once for the season basically, and it's been really, really poor from him. So that is why there's a big story about us bringing potentially a striker. Now, the question is, can we do it? And that is, can we bring in potentially your Victor Gyökeres in next summer for a potential £63 million deal? He has I think it's about an £84 million deal release clause. However, apparently in 2025, when it comes to summer transfer window, that he can leave for £63 million. That is according to the Times. He is a player who's currently, right now, one of the form strikers in Europe. Whether he could potentially replicate that form at Manchester United, time will tell. But I do think that he's someone that Ruben Amorim will look and sit there and say, listen, if we can do that deal, bring that player in. He trusts the player. He knows the player. He's 26 years old. I think he'll be 27. So he'll be 27 next year, going into his prime. He is older than Rasmus Højlund. So I think that those two, for example, can really develop next to each other, because we've got to try and find a proven goal scorer that's going to score the goals now, not somebody who's going to score the goals in the future. And he has spent time in England. I think he played for Coventry for a bit. Now, I don't think that Sporting will necessarily be too keen to part with him. Obviously, they don't want to lose Ruben Amorim. Now you'll lose. But I think Gyökeres is in such a good form at the moment, it's an inevitability. He's not going to stay at Sporting for the rest of his career. That is the reality. He just won't. He will make a move. He will move on to a bigger club. He's in too good a form. His numbers are too good. I think it's 66 goals in 67 games at the moment for Sporting. Those numbers and the way he scored a Champions League hat-trick, you don't stay at a club like Sporting with numbers like that. You just don't. That's the reality. There are too many big clubs. Strikers being such a hot commodity at the moment. Strikers are seen as a thing that's what wins you trophies. Erling Haaland was the final piece of the jigsaw to winning the Champions League for City. It's the most important position now these days. It's your goal scorers. And, that's why you look at your Ballon d'Or winners, and you've got your, Benzema, when they won the Champions League and the season he had. And you look at now, Real Madrid looking for goals and bringing in Mbappe. And that's why they're bringing in, when you sign strikers, you're signing goals. That's the thing. When you sign midfielders, you can look at defensive midfielders, for example, and hopefully that's not conceding as many goals. You can find more box-to-box midfielders, and hopefully that's, freeing up attacking players to produce more goals. You can find creative midfielders who are going to create chances to create more goals. When you sign a striker, you are literally signing goals. You are saying, right, we need to find 30 goals this season. Where do you find those 30 goals? Right, that 30 goals are going to cost us 80 million rand, 80 million in pounds in the form of a Victor Gyökeres. So that's when it comes to strikers. And the currency that United really need to start dealing in is goals, because we're not scoring enough at the moment. We're creating chances. Ruud van Nistelrooy was very upset when they basically implied that he wasn't creating chances, that United weren't creating chances. He just says they're not taking them. And I think it is partially right. I think we could be creating better chances, but I think there are a lot of chances that we're not taking. And I think if we had a player like Victor Gyökeres in the form he's in, we would be scoring a lot more goals than we currently are. So there's no doubt that United still need an elite level striker who can bag you 20, 30 goals a season. At the moment, we just don't have that. And the biggest problem is it's not like a case we've got two players who can bring you 15. We don't really have. We've got one or two players who can maybe produce more than 10 goals a season, maybe 3. And that's just not good enough at the end of the day, because you've got to find a striker that's going to score you 20 to 30 goals. And, wingers are going to score you 12, 13, and several of them. You look at, your Manchester Cities, for example, but, even in amongst Holland, you've got other players who are chipping with goals constantly. Liverpool have had Mohamed Salah for years, who's been scoring. He's been your sort of 20, 30 goals a season player. But don't underestimate the work that Sadio Mane used to do, the work that Luis Diaz is now doing. There's the Jota. They're chipping in with a lot of goals. So yeah, it's important that we do look at bringing in an elite level striker right now, somebody who can operate at the level now. So then the final thing is to look at this evening. Now, we're playing against PAOK, which means, by the way, we're playing against a former Manchester United player who, when he made his debut for United, was the youngest player ever to debut for United. And that is Shola Tire, who is expected to be involved this evening. Whether he'll start or whether come off the bench, we'll wait and see. He is 20 years old, so he could feature. He is in the squad, but I don't expect him to necessarily start. So, but he's very, very, very excited about coming back to Old Trafford. Has said that if he were to score, for example, he wouldn't celebrate. He still has so much respect for United and the likes, but he could be involved. In terms of my starting lineup, this is what I think. Right, so in terms of the predicted lineup for tonight, I think we'll see something quite similar to what we saw against Chelsea. So I think the under nine in goal, obviously a back four of Diego Dallo, Martinez, De Ligt, Mazraoui. You got to get Casemiro in the midfield. We've got Knox to Eriksen, Knox to Mason Mount, for example. No Kobe Mainoo still due to injury, so still very short on midfield options at the moment. I do think we'll then see Rashford, Bruno, and Garnacho, and I really hope we see Rasmus Højlund up front. I think Ruud van Nistelrooy is a big fan of Rasmus Højlund. Some outlets reporting the fact that we might see a Joshua Zirkzee get an opportunity this evening. I would prefer. I think Højlund's the better goal scorer. He is the better goal scorer. It's not even an opinion. So we need to get goals and we need to get more chances into him. But I think big games tonight for the likes of a Rashford who is got to prove himself. Alcy might find himself being potentially dropped for Amad Diallo, who's looked really impressive off the bench recently. And I think if Rashford wasn't Rashford in terms of the name and the profile, he might have been dropped sooner. So that's what I think we're going to go with. What do you think? And in terms of change, obviously when Ruben Amorim comes in, this all could change quite a lot. So this, in a couple of weeks' time, you're going to be able to see that, and we're going to see exactly what the formation might be. And the first time we will see that, I think it's the 24th of November, and it's Ipswich. So it's a game. It's going to be quite a cool game actually playing against Kieran McKenna. But it's going to be the first game under Ruben Amorim. So we go to international break after Sunday's game against Leicester, and we've got 14 days. Because when we come back on the 24th, that will be Ruben Amorim's first game. And the 24th, by the way, is a Sunday. So he will have quite a lot of time because I think the international break usually ends on sort of Tuesday or Wednesday. So you'll have Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So at least it's not a Saturday game or Friday night game, for example. And the nice thing is, for example, the only good thing is that because Manchester United are not playing particularly well at the moment, not all of them are going to be involved in the international break. So, a Rashford, for example, is not going to be involved. We don't imagine. So he, for example, will get to work with Amorim next week. And if Harry Maguire's coming back, for example, he'll get to work with. So a lot of these players will get an opportunity to work with Ruben Amorim in the next week, 2 weeks, sort of, and really understand what their roles are. And that'll hopefully be a really big benefit to them in terms of being up to scratch when we get that first game. So we are going to have that 14-day period with no Manchester United game. It's going to be very frustrating, but maybe it'll be a little bit. I think it's clever though from the club to be able to bring him before the international break. He can come in during the international break. He can have 14 days, even just for himself, to be able to plot exactly how things are going to work and stuff, and not, for example, walk in on a Thursday and have to manage a game on a Saturday type of thing. So hopefully that extended amount of time will do us a lot of good. Whether it will, we have to wait and see on the 24th of November. In terms of that, he'll have quite a quick fire games because he's got a Europa League game a few days later. So it's the 24th against Ipswich, and then the 28th against Bode Glimt, and then we start a December period on the 1st of December against Everton, and then we're ready into it. So we've got those 2 games ready to prepare for Arsenal on the 4th of December, which is going to be his first real big test. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. We'll be have a video a bit later in terms of the reaction of the team news that has been announced by Ruud van Nistelrooy later. So hopefully we'll have a really cool reaction video after the game as well. We'll be doing player ratings, giving players ratings about how we thought they fared. So make sure you come and check that out later. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to it as well as smash like on the video.